Well, welcome back, everybody, to what is it?
Hello,
Reality,
hello.
Reality After Darkness,
Yes.
uh, with your host Emily Styles and Mo Curls here. So,
Hello, everyone.
yes, yes. Sorry, I just wanted to say this is our
In a
official.
minute.
It's been our what? This is our official second episode, technically, because the interviews are just interviews, which are cool, great. But like for what you and I are trying to do, this is our second episode together.
Yes.
So it's been crazy, right? A month.
Here we are. We're making time for it. That's what counts.
We're trying. We're really trying. Because you know what? Everything and its mother was trying to get us to not do
Of
this.
course. You know,
Even today, we had freaking
today.
technical issues. I had to unplug stuff. She did. We got out of the first Zoom and we had to reboot and redo everything. So here we are. I hope you guys are happy with all the work we're
Yes.
putting
We're
in.
making all the efforts to be here.
Heck yeah.
Mhm.
So we had originally planned on doing the show in a certain way, but because of time, we want to kind of catch up and just kind of dive in. So initially we wanted to share all the different kinds of narcissists, right?
Yeah, I feel like we might get to that eventually. Maybe, the more interviews, the more explanations, people we could actually wait and see what people want to hear, and we could
Right.
then break it down for them.
That's true too. And
Yeah.
also with every story, we're gonna be able to identify a little bit like the different
Mhm.
characteristics. And so people can determine like, hey, this was my situation, or it sounds like that was my person, my narcissist.
Mhm.
So we know that from our communication that we both grew up in households where a parent or both, depending on everybody's situation, was narcissistic or had narcissistic tendencies, right? Uh,
Mhm.
so you were talking about how your dad ran the house like military style. You
Oh
want to talk
yeah.
about how was that?
Yeah, I grew up in an interesting household. It's crazy, and I wonder if this happens to others. I hope that we could find this out. Um, I don't know if it happens to you, but I don't remember a lot of the details of my childhood, but definitely the bad. And I
Right,
feel like that's one of the effects
right,
of living with a narcissist or dealing with a narcissist or someone who has the traits of, I should say, right?
right, right.
So yeah, my household felt like I was in boot camp.
Wow.
I remember watching videos as a child and seeing all the fun, but all the fun was on camera, you
Okay.
know. And I think I still have these videos. I actually cleaned out my car today. I have these VHSs.
What?
And as an adult now, I go back and watch them and I'm like, man, I wish it was always like that. But for the camera, it's always a different story, right?
Right. And that's a specific trait, right, of
Absolutely.
narcissistic lifestyle, because to everybody on the outside, it looks picture perfect. We have all these great memories.
Yeah, I have these videos with my dad. I mean, I was a daddy's girl. I was
Right.
a daddy's girl. I'm the baby. He has 5 children. I'm the youngest. He's married to my mother.
Mhm.
With her, he has my sister and I. I was his little minion, his little shadow as a kid. And
Right.
it was cool. It was cool up until I think about when I was my late, hmm, how could I put it? Maybe my early teenage years. When
Okay.
I when I was able to have a voice
Okay.
is when the dynamic changed.
Wow, because you stepped up and you
And
defended.
yes, absolutely. I started saying like, hey, this don't feel right.
Right.
This
Right.
don't this interaction feels limited. Like
Right.
what is going on here?
Right. Right. Right.
I will say, I'm gonna say I should have started off with this. My parents, I feel like they did the best that they could with what they had.
Absolutely.
And I'm pretty sure that some of the traits that they carry are from what they seen.
Right.
It's just been a cycle that they didn't know how to break. And thankfully, we have the resources and opportunity to break that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, I grew up in a pretty strict household to the point that I felt like, you know, fear.
Right.
Felt
Mm,
like I couldn't be a child. I couldn't just live. Like I had to worry about if I did this, what is gonna come of it? What do I have to hear? What mood or is the house gonna shift into?
right, 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 right,
Like, oh, it was always like literally walking on eggshells.
right.
My dad always provided,
Okay.
great provider. I always had food, a shelter, you know,
Sounds good.
clothes. You
Mhm.
know, if I asked for things, I would get them within reason.
Right, right, right.
But the love, the affection, the attention, the actual parenting was lacking.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was interesting, and unfortunately, my mom kind of ate a lot of that, and always was trying to keep the peace.
Right.
I would come home, and it would be cool for a couple hours, and I knew my dad was coming home from work, and everything was changing.
The whole temperature and the house.
Oh, the dinner had to be done. The water had to be ready for his feet to soak in because he was a mechanic. He
Okay.
would get his tray at his lap. He would watch TV,
Wow.
and everybody had to fall in line. This was every day.
That's difficult.
Yeah, it was very difficult. You know, I had a lot of rules. I couldn't be outside past when the sun was going down. I couldn't pass the stop signs. You know, I was limited with my friends as far as what I can partake in with them. And it was rough. And I feel a lot of it. I will say a lot of it kind of helped me in a sense because of the structure, but I'm missing all the love that I was supposed to get.
The other side of it. Now, can I ask
Yes,
you, I want to play devil's advocate here. Do you
absolutely.
think it could have been culturally, like, we come from this background where they were taught to be a certain way and machista and like
Oh
I'm
yeah.
the man and I'm the one who provides and I pay the bills and I say how things go. So that could be why too. They
Oh
were
yeah.
taught you gotta be the man. And it could be too generationally too.
Absolutely.
That old school mentality that, you know,
My dad has a tendency to portray himself to the world as this, you know, this guy that accomplished so much, you
mm,
know. His eyes, he
mm,
has these same stories that I've heard all my life that to him make him a god.
wow.
And everybody has to hear the same stories that meet him.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's
Oh,
funny.
it's the truth. I mean, you know how it is in
I
a
know
Spanish
how it
household,
is.
especially when the parties start and you know, I did this and look at what I did and what I got now and
Look at me,
me. There
me.
was so much me that I think my dad forgot he was a dad. Like, what about the rest of us?
I'm sorry, but yeah.
No, it's real, it's true. And
Mhm.
you know what? It's sad because to this day, my father, bless his soul, he's still alive. He's a lot older now, but I think that he's reflecting and trying to be better. But it for me, I have to come to the terms with a few years ago, I was going through a lot where, you know, I now live in the East Coast and I'm from the Midwest. And I had this thing where my parents were making the time to come to see me, but because they had other priorities, you know, my dad and all his things that he needs to do for himself, right? And I was always trying to build that gap, that love, trying to find that love. And it's like I had to come to terms with they may, well, my dad primarily may never know how to really love me in that caring way. And
Right,
that hurt. But I had to learn how to heal from that and accept him for who he is and how he is.
right, right,
It's like a catch 22, you
right.
know, with growing up with somebody like that.
Yeah, because there's like almost two different people, right? In one. You got
Hmm.
the one that everybody loves, the life of the party or whatever. They have this one
Hmm.
side. And then there's this other, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of scary because it's like you
Scary.
don't know which one you're gonna get from 1 minute to the next,
It
you know?
was, I remember a lot as a child, we used to have these get-togethers, parties, you know, each other's houses. And I would always hate when they would end because I would get my dad back, the one that I really knew. He
Right.
wasn't the fun one. He was the moody one, the mad one, the world did me wrong, even though I did so great in life and I still haven't been able to do greater. Like, there was just a lot of things. We could go for forever with this interview.
Right. No, of course. Let me ask you because of the love aspect. Now, you said you didn't feel it from your dad, but did you get that love and attention from your mom?
I think with my mom, she's in a whole nother story. I think she tried her best, but she was always so worried about keeping my dad calm and happy, or
Mhm.
trying to figure that out, that she kind of didn't have the opportunity to give me all of the love that she could have gave me if things were a little bit different in the household. So yeah, she did the best she could with the situation at hand.
Right. And that's the thing, like we want everybody to know we're not bashing parents, our parents.
Absolutely not.
Like we've said, they did the best they could. Nobody's perfect. And like you said, we always had a roof over our head. We had everything we needed. And for me, and then some, because I'm the only child. But there were things that were really bad when they were bad, and they were ugly things, that it's not um we're bashing, we're just talking about what was the reality of it. And that's why we're going down this path, because trying to figure out, did that affect us in our relationships? Did that affect the way we interact with other people? Does that affect our self-confidence, right? Because you
Yes.
get low self-esteem because you think you're not worthy, because you hear all this negativity, this negative talk, like, whoa. you know there were a lot of negative things said in my household about my mother. My father was
Hmm.
always saying
Oh,
really
yes.
nasty, nasty things, very vulgar, and it was usually when he was under the influence. So I also blame that, like he did the best he could, but I think that was to numb the pain from his life, the childhood that he had, because he was also, abused and he experienced stuff. So it's a lot of
Mhm.
stuff where I cry with him and I forgive you, Papi, I love you, and whatever, whatever. But these things hurt because they're like wounds that, how do we get that out of here? How do we
Yeah.
uproot it? And then some people are like, oh, just move on and get over it. But we
Yeah.
have to be able to
Not
forgive.
that easy.
Yeah, because if we don't get the I'm sorry directly from them, you got to find a way to heal and say, okay,
Mhm.
I never got it from them. And sometimes, what if a parent passes away and you never have that time to reconcile with them?
Yeah.
That
It,
goes
it,
to the grave. You
it's
gotta
tough.
find a way. There's a lot of people out there probably that are listening that maybe their parent passed and they didn't get a chance to reconcile or share how they felt with them about whatever, whatever. It's difficult, but yeah.
Difficult. And you know what's even harder is when you have the intent to want to be different and then you're around the person. Like, for instance, my father, he's in his 80s. He's set in his ways. I don't think that he's ever gonna see things my way because he's always right.
Right,
It's his
right,
way. It's his world. You know what I mean?
right. You're just living in it.
I'm just in it. I'm just a guest here.
Yeah.
But you know, I feel that lately I've come to terms that my relationships have been affected because of the relationship with my father. Like, I was never able to be vulnerable with my dad.
Okay.
So now I sometimes find it hard to be vulnerable because I have those walls built up because I was never even able to be like that with the person who made me.
Right.
Because it was a fear I had of him sometimes
Yeah.
because of that Dr. Jekyll, Mrs. Hyde. Like, man, when he was great, he was funny. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Don't leave. And
Right.
then and now as an adult, I'm like, I wish I knew what made you so sad, or I wish I knew what had you in that mood.
Right. Right.
But at that machismo,
Hmm.
he probably never let me know.
Right.
He probably doesn't even know himself, to be honest. And that's what makes me sad too about the whole situation. Like, you were your own way, but that must have drove you crazy too at some point. Like, always being upset or not being able to find out why.
Right. I agree, right? Because I've seen my father for all these years struggle, right? There's almost like an internal battle, right? Like they want, I feel they
Mhm.
want to be good and they want to be fine and chill, but then it's almost like something kind of gets them to like get into that mood, that
Mhm.
cursing everybody out on the road, maldiciendo everybody,
Yeah.
maldiciendo in Spanish for those that don't know. And it's like, que si esto, que si maldita sea, blah, blah, blah. And like, it was
Yo, my dad's favorite
yeah,
word.
arguing with everything, the air. Like, what are we fighting with, bro? Like, what just happened?
Bro, you know how bad I had it? Like I couldn't wash clothes after 7 p.m. because my dad didn't want to hear the washer and dryer.
Wow.
We couldn't shower like after 9 because it was too late.
Ooh, I didn't live in
It
that
was
kind
just a lot of little micromanaging. Like
of right.
I didn't understand it. I really didn't. And and it started to affect me in my teenage years. I started having a voice. I started seeing, and we started bumping heads
Right,
because it's like I know now what's going on here.
right, right.
And I will say that my sister and I have become very strong women because of that. Like we know, like stand up for yourself. Don't deal with that because of what we saw my mother deal with. He was
Right.
always like trying to belittle my mom and making fun of her and trying to be funny with it. Like it's not cute.
It's
That's
not.
not how you show love.
Mm.
Like why is it that you have to show love in that manner? And then my poor mom, like, you know, was always rejecting him because she didn't like all that. Like, don't treat me like that.
Right,
You
right.
know, you got to treat people with respect and love. And I feel like some narcissists know the people that they can manipulate and treat a certain way and keep them coming back for more. And people confuse that with love.
Right, right. Well, and I think it's a codependent dynamic, right? Because
Absolutely.
if the wife is used to the husband being a provider and doing this and doing that, they want to keep the house stable, it's solid. Let's keep the family together because I don't want to. And in those days too, divorce wasn't really a big thing. So they want to keep. And not only that, I think a lot of times in our family's generation, they wanted to keep up with appearances. It's about what do
Oh,
people
yeah.
think? Okay, si fulano, the neighbors, what is the neighbor gonna think if
The
you're not
neighbor.
married or whatever? Like one day my dad wound up in my neighbor's house on the couch. We don't know how the hell he got in my neighbor's house on the sofa. And they called us. They're like, hey, you want to come over and get your husband? He's on our couch. And I'm like, Mom, what the heck? And this was where I grew up. So I was embarrassed. I'm like, oh my God, so it was always, what are the neighbors gonna think? What is everybody else gonna
Always.
say? It was always
Always.
for everybody else and
Hmm.
not because it was a facade. It's this fake, we have to look this way on the outside. Meanwhile, inside, the shit was falling apart.
All the time. All the time. Like my dad was big on always trying to be like a topper.
Right, right,
Like
right,
you got a 70 inch, I'm getting an 80 inch.
right,
You
right,
got
right, right.
this, I'm doing that. But why? For who?
For who? Yeah, like they got this, they just kept I didn't want to dive in, but like
Yeah,
it was
a
always
lot.
we gotta do better and better and we want more and more. And it's like when is it enough? Right? I don't think there's
And
ever
why do we need more than what we have?
there's never enough. I love the place that I grew up in, the house that I grew up in. And when we moved, I was grateful to have a roof over my head. I'm still grateful to have, that's why I'm trying to be careful how much I say. But I got a roof over my head, so I'm grateful. But like there were things that, didn't have to happen. There were a lot. I think it's a lot of this, the numbing, because that's really what I think it is. It was the
Mhm,
numbing. I don't want to feel this pain. I don't want to
mhm.
deal with my life. Maybe didn't like his life at some moments and just resented,
Right.
mom and I for making, because okay, so I'll tell you this, in my dad's scenario, he wanted to be a musician, very talented. From Ben Chiquito in Puerto Rico, he was very good with music and guitar and singing, and he used to perform and whatever. He was excellent. So when he got here and he started living his life out here, my mom basically told him, "We're about to have a baby. There's no way. Music and you and traveling, that's just not a lifestyle that I'm gonna be okay with." So I sometimes feel like he never
Or at
got
least he
to.
passed it down to you.
True, but that's another thing. I was always competing with him because he needed everybody to hear him sing. It was
Uh-oh.
him. So as a kid, imagine this. I'm playing piano, 6, 7, 8 years old, doing my little recitals, and my dad would come out with the guitar and he had to outshine me. I'm like, I'm your kid. Why are we
Mm-hmm.
competing? There's no reason. So right now, if I were to start singing and playing music, you'll hear the guitar in the background. And I'm not knocking him, but that's just always been my thing. I've always had to compete for my mom to like, oh, you know that I love the way Emily's singing this and that. And then he'll come out with the guitar and start singing and out singing like loud because he wants to make
Well,
sure. I'm like, bro, we're not brother and sister. I'm your child. Like, at the time, I'm a kid. Like, what the hell? So I always stayed in the shadow because I was like, I
mm-hmm.
can't be, like I can't be myself because if
Mm-hmm.
I'm myself, it's too much. And then I
Mm-hmm.
remind him of the fact that I'm the reason why he never went off to be this music star. You know what I'm saying? There's just so much.
Yeah.
It- you
But
know,
but you know that narcissistic trait of being the center of attention is real.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that could be part of it. You can outshine them.
Right,
It's me, me, me. Come on, I'm right here.
right, right.
Spotlight.
Funny enough, you know that I love astrology, and I did
Uh-huh.
my dad's birth chart, and his moon is Leo. And you know the
Wow.
Leo sign is the world revolves around me.
Oh
And not
yeah.
all Leos are that toxic. There's some Leos that are really dope. I know plenty
Oh
of
yeah.
them, but,
Hmm.
but a
Me
lot
too.
of them can be the world revolves. They're the center of attention. Look at me. I'm here. I have arrived, and
Mhm.
I was like, wow. And so when I looked at that,
Yeah, Scorpio. So imagine.
oh, muchacha, with that little thing to like stab you with
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
what is
Uh-huh.
it? Tail, the
The
stinger.
little, yeah, the stinger.
Yeah, Scorpios are difficult. And the thing is, they become obsessive about things. They're also very controlling.
Mm-hmm.
They also have a tendency, they can be very loving if they were nurtured to be very loving. If the parents
Right.
at home were nurturing, then they'll, because I know a couple that are very nurturing, very
Uh-huh.
sweet and kind.
They're a
But
little rough around the edges, though, for the
yes,
most part.
yes, they could be rough around the edges too. Yep, yep, yep. And
Very mysterious, very independent. I mean, they got all the traits, but my dad's
yeah,
a true Scorpio. Moody and all. Moody and all.
my dad's a Libra.
Oh,
So
hey, that's me.
I know it's you, but a lot of the stuff was justice. He was always trying to find justice for everybody. So he's the one to make sure justice is being served. And I'm like, bro,
Mhm.
you don't need to worry about every single thing. But for the most part, like we're laughing and everything like that. But they had their good. So it's like, how the hell can you hate them? You know what I mean? It's hard.
I think the hardest part with me and my dad, like, I will have to say, what I wish I had more of from him would obviously the love, the affection, the empathy.
Okay.
He didn't have any of that.
Wow.
I was a star basketball player in middle school and the beginning of high school, and my dad never came to one of my games.
Wow.
That's crazy. I was MVP, like best player playing all the games, had awards, never saw him in the stands.
Wow.
But what's crazy is he would sit there and tell the neighbors and all these people how great and like just to show off. But where are you?
Right. Yeah.
What about me wanting to see you, like waving me, cheering me on?
Want to be able to use, oh, my kid,
Yeah.
because you're an extension of them.
Oh yeah, he would love
Don't
to brag about things and make them like I
doesn't mean
remember when my last career choice, I was in but on an island behind bars, right? As they say. No, not in a bad way. But no, I was a correction officer. And
for
my dad
clarifying.
had to exaggerate that and tell people I was in the FBI doing all this stuff. I'm like, what? Like, where'd you confuse all this? Like, he has to always make it more when nobody's even asking about that. That
Well,
was another he was known for telling you stuff that you didn't even ask for, like information
extra
about your house or about your how much you make. Like nobody's asking you this stuff, sir.
no, mine does the same thing. It's freaking hilarious. I'm just like, I look at my mom like, Ma, nobody asked him. And she and I,
Mhm.
we laugh it off because it's so many years
So
that
many.
we
It's
know.
predictable at this point.
Yes, yes, you can write it down. I'll be like, I bet you they're about to
I
do
know
X,
this.
Y, and Z.
I know the stories by heart by at this point. I tell people if you know, friends or whoever, like if we have parties and people haven't met my daddy, I'm like, oh, get ready for this story, that story, and that story. And they're always like, how'd you know? Hello, almost 40 years of this.
Yep, you already know.
But
It,
you know, all in all, it was an interesting childhood. I'm still healing from a lot of things. I'm still trying to find answers to a lot of things. I think we're all a work in progress.
right.
I feel like right now I need to come to terms with learning how to, you know, break that wall down that I have of feeling so rejected and still trying to build, because this his time on this earth is how you put it. He has less time than he has more time because he's so up there in age, you know, and you know, I do put it off a lot because there's still pain there.
Right.
And it's like we're always conflicted. Like, what do we do? Do we like bend the knee for our parents and just deal with it? Or how do we heal from all the trauma? And that's, you know, where we're at in life right now, I feel. And everybody needs to hopefully have the opportunity to get to that point where they can heal those wounds.
I agree. What kinds of steps have you taken for your healing journey? I know some of them, but if you want to
Yeah,
share.
you know, I put myself in therapy. I needed therapy. I found myself in relationships, in um work environments where I wasn't feeling like fulfilled. And I feel like that lack of um how could I put it? Like I felt like I was being rejected by my parents in a sense because I wasn't getting all that.
Okay.
So I find myself in situations where like I'm kind of like lost, like is this enough, should I be doing more, should I, you know, where should I be, or like a lot of confusion going on because I didn't have that stability of that from my dad or from my parents.
Right. Right.
So I put myself in therapy and I do, you know, express myself. I through with my therapist, I try to journal, even voice clips. Sometimes you can voice clip yourself and just kind of get it out there so that you can listen to yourself and kind of hear what you're saying
Right.
instead of just thinking it in your head. I listen to a lot of audiobooks as well. You know, I had to find out my attachment style. I think that's important. People, a lot of people don't know what that is. I know I'm an anxious, um, preoccupied.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm always thinking about worst case scenarios because of that lifestyle that I lived as a child. Like, what can possibly happen? How bad can it get today?
Right. Right. Right.
And always being on edge. So I had to identify that so that I know how to move in relationships, so I could also make other people aware that, hey, I've struggled with this. This
Right.
is what's going on with me. I'm working on it. You know, for many, many years, I didn't know what it was. I
Right.
didn't know anxiety was making me feel all these other things as well.
Right.
So there are a lot of resources out there. Um, even meditation. I'm gonna start getting into that. I have a lot of I'm noticing things with my body. If I'm not expressing myself,
Right.
I'm internalizing, I'm starting to feel pain. So I need to find a release.
A release. Now, also, I wanted you to share because I know that you got on a healthier lifestyle. When you started to do that, did it help you as well?
Absolutely. It did give me clarity. It gave me more energy, more drive in a sense, more
Mhm.
ambition.
Right.
So, you know, making little changes overall, it's almost like gears, changing little gears kind of ultimately help the bigger picture, I feel.
I
It's
agree.
not just, hey, I got to do this one thing and I'm going to be healed. No, it's multiple avenues that you have to go down to find true healing.
And
And
also, it's a lot of
yeah,
years of baggage,
years, you know.
emotional baggage, physical, the stress of being on eggshells, of not knowing what's going to happen in the household. That plays a role as we become adults in our eating, our lifestyle, our drinking, our smoking, our whatever. Like,
Our
certain
shopping,
things,
all of our addictions
shopping,
that are out there.
addictions of all kinds, and also relationship style, maybe not wanting to commit, being like with one person and another, and keeping our options
Mhm.
open, like
Yep.
not wanting to commit or committing because you feel you need that love and that attention and the connection you never got. You know,
Right.
I think there's so many things, but I'm really proud of you for one, taking, the step to go into therapy, to fixing your body. Now you're
Mhm.
working on your mind with all the audio books, and you're also working on your spirit by getting ready to do the meditation. Like, that's what it's all about.
Hey, I'm gonna try to get into yoga. I'm not flexible, but I'm starting to notice the older I'm getting, when you look around you and you really take the time to see what's going on, the people that you engage with, at work or wherever, out in the streets, the people that you feel that good energy from, they do all these things.
Yes.
They
Yes.
make the time for their mind, their body, and their soul.
Yep. Yep.
And
Hmm.
it's like, that's what we need to focus on. Our main priority should be us,
Yes.
because if we don't, we're just going to fall apart.
Absolutely. And I think too, a lot of times in these types of scenarios, when you grow up in that environment, you also take on the parent role sometimes, well, in my case, and always making sure everybody's good, and people might be like, what? No, I've never seen that, but they don't know what you go through behind closed doors. They don't
Right.
understand. It's not a bashing or talking negative, it's just what the reality was. I was taking care of emotionally my parents, making sure, is mommy good? Did Papi say something that hurt her? I gotta make
Mhm,
sure she's
mhm.
okay. I gotta be her protector. But then
Right.
I also felt bad for my dad because I understood his childhood and the traumas that he lived through. And once he wasn't drinking and he was calm and quiet, he was apologetic and he was nice. And he was like, oh, let's go for a ride. Let's go get some ice cream.
And you had more than me. I never got a non sorry.
No, and yeah, but the thing is the I'm sorry, but it would happen again, and it would happen again, and it would happen again. So the I'm
And
sorry's
that's
to
yeah.
me become empty. They were empty promises. Oh, I'm gonna change, or I'm gonna not drink, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna be better, and then it would start again, and it would
And
start
that
again.
internally lets you down.
And
That
it
that also has to affect you in your relationships, because then you get, I would imagine you would have triggers of I'm sorry's and then fears of being let down by that.
was a lot of triggers, but you know, and then also having to be a people pleaser, making sure everybody's good. All right,
To
I know
keep the
that.
peace.
To keep the peace, exactly, and, like, sometimes I would look at my mom and I'm like, "Yo, why do you deal with this crap? Like,
Yes.
why?" I cried, I remember telling her, "But mommy, why?" "Oh, because I know he loves us." "Oh, because your father's really a good man, he has a good heart, he really means well." I get it, but it was so bad that there were some times I was just like, "Yo, I don't understand why you don't pick up your crap and let's go."
Yeah.
Like, I
Some of
don't
the yeah, some of the tone, the vulgarness was just so nasty. I felt the same way for my mom, and unfortunately, my mom was very naive. She grew up very fast. My parents are 14 years apart.
Wow.
My dad kind of ran the show from the beginning.
Right.
33, what, 19, whatever the math is, something like that, when they got married, 18, 19, whatever. So she was the oldest, and back then in the 70s, in order to leave your house, you had to be married.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she got married, and my dad ran the show the rest of the way, to the point that she never learned to drive. He
Wow.
scared her. You know why? Because then she needs him.
She
To
needs him.
this day,
He
to this day,
created
he drive her
codependence.
around.
He
He
created.
created a lot of the codependency. He didn't really let her have a job. He did provide, but it was at the expense of walking on eggshells. Now you're not out there getting experience. You're not out there meeting people. You're
Mhm.
not engaging your mind. You're not growing. If
Wow.
you're always home, de que lavando lo trate, folding clothes, waiting for you, your dinner,
Wow.
you know, you
Yeah.
stay naive that way. And
Right.
he used that to his advantage, I feel,
Right.
you know. And my mom dealt with it because she had the house, she had the bills paid, she had the food to
Right.
make, and unfortunately, like, our parents kind of grew up in a time where having a little bit was a lot, like the having the house was enough, so they dealt with whatever just because they had that. And
Right,
we're a different generation where we want more because we deserve more.
right, right. And because we've been there, we had that. So now we
Yeah,
want better. And
yeah,
what I
absolutely.
think parents also want their kids always to be better than they were.
Yeah.
But to me, in my current situation, they set the bar so high now that I'm just like, I don't know if it's attainable. But that's the thing for me. They scare the hell out of me, and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna fail if you go out there," and it's scary, right? Because
Mhm.
for many years it was always like, "Oh, you should move out and you should do this and you should do that." Then when I'm doing it, it's like, "Oh, but why are you leaving? Where are you going?" So it's been a like a psychological mind fudge. I'm gonna
Mhm.
be polite and not curse here, but it's a mental thing because I'm
Yeah.
ready to go out. Like a few years ago, I was house hunting, and one of the parents was just like, "Well, why do you have to leave? Why does this have to be about you? And why you gotta?" And I'm like, "Bro, it's time for me to move out. I had two jobs and I was making the money and I was ready to go. But why? I don't want to talk about this right now. I don't feel like dealing with this." And I'm just like, bro, like when did me moving out have what the it was just weird for me. I'm just like, okay,
You
but I
feel like that keeping you there, a sense of like a control a little bit still?
oh, of
That
course, 100%.
have you
Even so, okay, one of my things is therapy too, thankfully.
Mhm.
And people are probably like, "Oh, why are they sharing all this information?" But this is helpful, to other people because they got to know there's a solution. There's a way to, get therapy, get it talk through it. My therapist was like, when you're capable financially, move, but I pay the business rent and the
Mhm.
expenses and my team and this and it's just the bills just go on and on and on. And thankfully too, at the moment, my dad's been very helpful to me. That's the reason why, like, I'm careful with what and how I say things because I do appreciate them too. But like
Mm.
there's always this push and pull. Like you gotta get out of here, but we don't want you to leave. You gotta get out of here, but don't leave. So it's like there's a dynamic that's toxic with the three of us. Like we're the three musketeers, and there's no way I'm leaving. And I feel that now as they get older, they're my
Yeah.
responsibility. That's how I feel. They've taken care of me all these years. I feel like I have to. And it sucks because I'm like, well, when the heck am I gonna ever cut the umbilical cord, right? Because that's
Yeah.
ideally the situation. I gotta cut it and just keep it moving and move. But
You know what I just thought of? Like I'm thinking about like people around our age, and there's a lot of us that are still, you know, in the same situation with the parents. And it's like you want to do better, but they keep you they it's almost like they make you feel bad in a sense.
mm,
Like, why? You're here home, like, you know what I mean? Because you want to grow, and it's like you start feeling that, like, oh God, am I making the right
guilt.
decision?
It's a guilt thing, or also you're not gonna make it out there. That's
Yeah.
I've heard
And
that
feeling the fear.
for many years. It's like, oh, you're not going to survive out there. If you leave, what if you can't afford it? Then you're gonna have to come back. What are people gonna say? I'm like, bro, then I come back if I can't afford it. But then I was like, you know what?
Oh
If
yeah.
I want to be able to leave and not have to come back. So for me, I was like, well, then I'm not leaving then. I'm like, plain and simple. I'm not going anywhere. And people always ask me, when are you gonna buy your own house? When are you gonna mind your own business? Like
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
dynamic that I have to deal with that other people they don't understand this dynamic because I feel I owe them. And my therapist is like, why do you owe them? You don't owe them. You did whatever and you were parenting and you were always
Mhm.
what is it? The thing is like, so I remember my dad would go through his moments where he needed to talk to somebody. So I became his counselor, his therapist. As a kid, I'm gonna go
Yeah,
take
my
you.
dad be trying to talk to me, but about wild stuff. I'm like, we don't talk about that stuff. Like now that he's older, I'm like, yeah, I don't feel comfortable talking to you about that
There were
stuff. So,
things that I didn't need to know as well.
right,
And still to this
exactly.
day, I'm like, why did they tell me these things? And like, I don't think this was good. But I laugh about it now because there's nothing else we could do about it, right? Like
Right.